like I said, there's a few bad eggs, but that's just the way it always goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was surrounded by a bunch.
Now,
of
how
really
was the
serious
culture?
dudes.
You know, you're surrounded by all these people who are hungry. They worked at the laundry, and you guys sort of had your own little club, because at that point, and I'm telling you, because I didn't know fucking about any of that till 2009 or 2008. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so at this point, I feel like you and just a select few of those people who worked at those restaurants knew what was up. How was that, like, sort of perspective, like, you know, and knowing other cooks from other restaurants that maybe didn't know that side of things? Did you feel like you had an advantage? Did you feel like you were on the cusp of something? You know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I was able to connect the dots, right?
Mm.
I had the cookbooks. I own the cookbooks, you know what I mean? I was able to kind of connect the dots. And I was able to ask questions. I was able to be like, yo, you work there? Like, I've always wondered about this dish. Like, and I, you know, back then you kind of traveled with cookbooks in the back, in your book bag. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, as cooks, you would kind of just like, there was no Instagram,
no internet,
you know, like the internet was a thing, but like none of us had it on our phone. Yeah, really, you know what I mean?
So Nokia.
Yeah, I was playing Snake all day long, you know, sitting on playing Snake on the shit, and no more like surfing Instagram.
There you go.
So like, you know, cookbooks were still a big influence, and I think in all of our lives. So like I said, I was able to kind of, I guess, connect the dots to dishes that were meaningful to me, and I was able to kind of live vicariously through like the way some of these cooks were talking about executing them and preparing them. So like I felt like I was able to kind of gain insight that way. And then when I started working there, I started to travel on my own. You know, we would, because it was a union place, we would get vacation time. Yeah. You know, whether you work, you know, whether you work 1 year or 5 years, you get
like,
time
what
off.
is vacation?
Yeah, and I was so close to California. I went up to Napa a couple times, and went up to LA a couple times, and went through Scottsdale, Arizona, and dined at a couple places, the Venetian Hotel, and all these dope spots. So like I was getting my taste, and then Star Chefs had just started, which, you know, I think they're still doing their thing, but this was like probably 2004 or 5-ish areas, and Star Chefs had just started. So now I was come and fly into New York City to come to Star Chefs. Yeah. And that was like, oh my God, you know, you've got like, you know, Juan Miguel, Zach, now you've got Ferran Adria, you've got all these world-renowned, well-known chefs coming to New York City to do demos and to do all these things. So I was, you know, I had learned about it through someone that had come to Vegas from New York, and now, you know, I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna fly out to New York, and I'm gonna go to this thing. And I've been going ever since the first one, and I think there are probably like 18 or 19 of them in at this point. And when you were working for me, I mean, you'd go down there. I would still go down there, and I still try to do that, and that's like, you know, the one thing that it's allowed me to kind of like just, you know, be inspired. Yeah, for sure. A little bit more. Yeah.
Look at what others are doing, and I know that I think Chef did one or something.
Yeah, actually, Costa was there, and I hit him up. I was like, "Yo," I was like, "Galati work for you or what?" And he's like, "Galati." I was like, "Tall Puerto Rican kid." He's like, "Oh yeah, Dave." I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, are you Jake Rojas?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I've heard about you." I was like, "Yeah, I've heard about you." And so like we talked shit a little bit.
I love
about
that.
You. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
But yeah, so that, you know, the time in Mix was dope. I was able to, you know, like I said, I was able to spend some real quality time with a lot of dudes and girls that were like super into it, and then I jumped onto a little like prep thing with some of the Guy Savoy guys in the morning, and then I found out that Joel Robuchon was opening up at the MGM, and like, you know, the laughing thing at Ducasse was, you know, you never leave Ducasse to go work for Robuchon. It's like, you know, they're two superstars of France.
Yeah,
like,
you should pick one or the other.
You got to choose one school or the other. And I was just like, fuck that. Like, that's not my gig. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here to learn. Like, I want, I'm here to learn. You know. And so I hit the chef up, Bruno, And I was like, I did one of those. Chef, can I speak to you? You already get those. You already know the cook's about to fucking drop some news on you.
Yeah.
Shit. But him was like, all right, I'm not leaving. I don't want to leave, but I just want to ask you what your opinion is.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, listen, I heard I heard Joe Robuchon is going to be opening at the MGM Grand. I know it's a ways out. How would you feel if I applied there? And he looked at me, he's like, how are you going to apply there in his French accent, you know what I mean? And he's like, my friend is going to be the chef, Claude Lepuy. And I was like, okay. And he's like, do you really want to work there? And I was like, yeah, I think it would be really great for me to try to work there. So he helped me out. He helped me get a job there. He saw that I was eager. He saw that I wanted it. So, he put a good word in with me. And, most places in Vegas, you got to go through HR. Yeah. And you got to do the whole song and dance and the whole deal. And because it was Joe Robuchon, it was just like, fucking, there was no HR.
Above the law.
There was no union.
Yeah.
It was not a union house. It was just like, okay, you're going to work here. This is what we do. Da, 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 da. So I got a job there. And then again, now I'm surrounded with guys now that have been all over the world.
Yeah.
Not just America. Not just America. And that was a whole new influence for me.
Yeah. How was your stage at Robuchon? Did you have to stage?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
How was that?
It was intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was intense. So I did 3 days of stage.
Uh-huh.
And my first day, all I did was airbrush plates.
Okay.
Like, part of
airbrush, like with a fucking machine,
machine airbrush and like stencils and fucking like little like lobsters and crabs and like weird shit, but that was part of it. Like, his food is very much a painter's palette. It's very much looked at as artistry in a lot of ways. So, every plate had an underplate, and the underplate got decorated.
Yeah.
And you went all out with the decorations.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Pine cones and fucking quail eggs and, like airbrush lobsters on it and like all this shit. So like there's this plate rack that held like 60 plates in the kitchen that were just the underplates to the dinner plates.
Yeah.
And someone's kind of job was to make sure that all those plates were ready for service.
Yeah.
And so that's usually like what all of the stagiaires were fucking doing, and dude, this one time, man, it was terrible. I thought I was gonna fucking get fired that day. We're standing there, right? And Mr. Robuchon and Claude are standing at the plate tree, we called it.
Yeah.
With all the fucking decorated plates. And we used to use this like airbrush paint that you had to mix alcohol and like this other substance with. I can't remember what it was called. But it was so that when you spray painted, when you airbrush the plate, it would become wipeable. It didn't like stick. Like,
gotcha.
And so I'm mixing. We had like this little, fish tub of paint, all colors, like magenta and gold and fucking blue and glitter and fucking just crazy shit, right? But that was like part of it. And so we're, so I'm standing there and I'm doing the thing, and Claude turns around and he and I are talking about one of the colors is a little off that he wants. He wants it to be a little more red, not so much pink. Not so much pink, he says. More red. He's like fucking telling me. So he's mixing the paint in a little pint container, and he fucking drops it. Well, Mr. Robuchon wore straight black silk chef coat.
Black silk.
With his fucking purple insignia of his name on his thing, with the MOF collar and the fucking Prada shoes and the fucking black slacks, crispy, ironed, like perfect. And the fucking paint, bro, just splatters all over his coat, his whole chest, right? And I'm just like, God, thank God that wasn't me, And then fucking, he turns around, he looks at the chef, and then Chef Claude looks at me and fucking slaps me and says, "What the fuck, lie?" He blames the shit on me. And I'm just like, motherfucker just threw me under the bus, you know? And I was just like, oh my God, like, you know?
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like, this fucking dude just threw me under the bus. So, like, whatever, I picked up the paintbrush and I fucking run to the back and I try to clean it up and whatever. So I didn't get fired that time, but, you know, it was intense.
This is the first day of your stage, or this is when you worked?
This is like the third day of my stage.
Okay.
You know?
So then, did you have to make any dishes?
I did.
Okay. You had to cook for the chef on your stage.
Yeah, I had to cook a chicken. Yeah. A whole chicken.
A whole chicken? They just give you a whole chicken?
It was like a guinea hen.
Got you.
Yeah.
Did they make you do a set with it, or did you just have to cook the bird?
I just had to show them I knew how to cook it.
Got you. And then, you know, service is obviously happening. How the fuck are you cooking this bird?
Oh, this happened like in the daytime. Way before
Okay,
service.
got you. Yeah. Very cool. So you get the job.
Yeah.
And then how do you leave Guy?
Robuchon.
You get the job at Robuchon. How do you leave the other job? Or they already kind
of
fine.
I had already left Mix. And,
Okay.
Or I left Mix and whatever. I had already put my notice in. I already knew that the chef was putting a good word in for me. I guess through protocol or whatever it was. And I got hired on to the meat station. And there again, it was like, you know, you had the Violon station, which was just all meat pickups. And we were doing a 6 and a 16 course degustation menu only. So, you know what I mean? And the service was in French, and I had never had the opportunity to work in France or in a kitchen that had only done service in French. So that was a hurdle for me to learn.
For sure.
How
long did that take?
It took a solid 3 or 4 months for me to understand when the chef would fire something, what the name of it was, and what course number it was. You know what I mean?
Got you.
So I would take the menu and translate it to English because the menu was in French. I'd translate it to English and then write all the numbers on the courses that were our stations.
Uh-huh.
And we had probably 4, 5, 6 pickups, excluding the a la carte menu, which was a whole nother 3 or 4 pickups. Yeah, and you could get a fucking a la carte in the middle of.
Yeah, in the middle of your tasting.
Yeah, and
what are you cooking at this point? What proteins?
We're doing. It was only Kobe.
Okay.
A5 only. As all of our meat items were A5 Kobe. Veal, bone-in ribeye. Everything was sous vide. It was the first restaurant that I had been in where everything was sous vide.
So they must have had a fucking huge cryovac machine.
We had a big cryovac machine.
Butchery, all that.
Yeah. At Robuchon, at Ducasse, everything was done in the AM via sous vide and whatnot. And then at nighttime, if it was a steak that you cooked on the minute, then that's what you did. But if it was, if it was a veal chop or if it was a bone in something, they were cooking it to mid-rare via sous vide, and then you were picking it up in a circulator on your station and searing it, basting it, and then sending it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then and we had a butcher, a butcher shop there, fucking Mark, he was a crazy motherfucker from New Jersey. Like we hit it off. We partied a lot together at the Ducasse restaurant, but at Robuchon, we had our own butchers. The meat station has its own butcher room, and we had our own butcher. We had our own meat refrigerator where we aged all of our shit. And the seafood guys had their own butcher station, their own room, and their own walk-in. And then we had a walk-in for just vegetables, and then we had a walk-in that was just the freezer. And then the garde guys are the only guys that really had to work out of the walk-in and work on their station.
Yeah.
All of us had, we would sit in the butcher room all day and butcher and tie and truss and,
gotcha.
and so on and so forth.
And for the most part, meat, and especially in France, that shit sits out.
Yeah.
Temper the shit out of it and just sear it and go.
Yeah, so we're not worrying about entremetier at that point. We're making sauce, and we're fabricating meat, and we're sous vide meat, and we're doing everything that needed to be done with all of the meat dishes. Entremet did all of the vegetable pickups. Seafood did only seafood, and Entremet did all the veg pickup for seafood. Garde they did everything from start to finish, plus the bouche. And Garde had 3 or 4 guys on it. At that time, Matthew Kirkley was the sous chef on the Garde station.
No fucking way.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, so it was me, Matt, fuck, I can't remember the other two guys' names at this point. But anyways, they're all, one's in San Diego. The name will come to me in a second. But he's in San Diego. He's got his own restaurants.
Yeah.
And then